What's up, guys? Welcome to the final round. I'm your host, Isaiah, and today we're going to be breaking down the UFC Fight Night card, Usman versus Buckley, that's taking place this Saturday, June 14th, in the State Farm Arena in Atlanta, Georgia. I won't be recapping the past week event. I've already posted that video. Make sure to go watch that, leave a like, leave a comment, leave anything. Anything is greatly appreciated, but we're just going to do a quick breakdown and picks for this card, so let's get right into it. First fight on the card, we have Vanessa Demopoulos versus Jamie Lee Horth. Vanessa moving up from 115 to 125, 11-7, 2-3 in her last five, taking on Jamie Lee Horth, 7-2, who's 3-2 in her last five. I'm gonna have to lean Jamie Lynn Horth. I think she's just gonna be a bit bigger than Vanessa. As you see, she's 5'7", Vanessa's 5'2", and she has almost 7 inches of reach advantage on Vanessa. And Vanessa wasn't always the biggest flyweight, strawweight. So moving up to 125, I think she's just gonna be a bit undersized and just get held and controlled. And Jamie Lynn Horth is good at wrestling and controlling, so I think Jamie Lynn Horth is going to take this fight by decision. And moving on, we have Phil Rowe versus Andre Lusa. Interesting fight. Phil Rowe, 10-5, 3-2 in his last five, taking on Andre Lusa, who's 10-4, who is 2-2-1 in his last five. Philip Rowe should win this fight, looking at the stats and competition he's fought and who he's been able to beat. But he's also had a couple of fights where he has low fight IQ. The Neil Magny fight plays mostly in my mind, where he was engaging in the clinch with Magny, who great at the clinch game, and just decision Phil Rowe, because Phil Rowe didn't show great fight IQ. But if he keeps it at distance and picks his shots, I think he can beat Andre Lusa, who more of a brawler type guy, likes to get in close and get the fight done. Although if they end up grappling, I think while Philip Rowe does have decent BJJ, I think Andre Lusa would favor more on the ground. So I think Phil Rowe takes this by decision. Don't bet on it, because Phil Rowe has a tendency to show low fight IQ in fights. So yeah, Phil Rowe is my pick, but I'm not too confident on him. Next fight on the card, we have Ricky Simone taking on Cameron Smotherman. A short notice fight. Ricky Simone was supposed to be taking on Jourdain Bodell, and Smotherman's just stepping up on short notice to take him. Ricky, I think, is on the back end of his career. He's coming off a win in his last fight, a brutal knockout win over Javid Basharat. But other than that, in his previous performances, he hasn't shown like too much advancement. He's 1-4 in his last five. Just looks like he's slowly aging out of his prime, and just the younger fighters are coming up and just able to do more than him and edge him on a decision, sometimes even finish him. So he's a decent fighter, but definitely on the back end of his career. But he's taking on Cameron Smotherman, who taking this on short notice. Like I said, he's 12-5, 4-1 in his last five. Coming off that loss to Sergey Cide. He's an alright fighter. He's got 3 inches on height, and surprisingly, they have the same reach. But I think just based off of age and trajectory of the career, I would lean more towards Cameron Smotherman. I just think he's more hungry and more ready to, prove he's ready to be at that UFC level, while Ricky Simone, while he's good, is on the back end of his career, and I don't think he wins this fight. So I'm leaning Cameron Smotherman. Honestly, I had Ricky Simone in the Jourdain fight a little bit, but I think Smotherman just ends up beating Simone. But moving on, we have Cody Durden versus Jose Ochoa. Cody Durden 17-7-1. Jose Ochoa 7-1. Cody Durden, also another fighter who's on the back end of his career, coming off that loss to Josh Van, where I think he broke his face in the first round, so he wasn't able to do much. 2-3 in his last five. Has wins over his last wins were Jake Hadley and then Matt Schnell. He had a ninja choke over Matt Schnell, but it's Matt Schnell, and he ain't a win to brag about. And he lost to Taguir, Bruno Silva, and Josh Van, all three great guys. Bruno Silva not as great as the other two, but he's definitely on the back end of his career. His cardio seems to be waning a tiny bit. He's taking on Jose Ochoa, who is a up and comer, coming off that loss to Lono Kavanaugh, who is a prospect in my opinion. He's still pretty good. That was his debut fight, and we've seen a recent trend where a fighter looks real good in their debut fight, loses, and then the next fight they come in as what is he? Is he a favorite in this fight? Let me check. I cannot see. Never mind. I think he's a favorite. Yeah, he's a favorite in this fight. So he definitely should win this fight because Cody's on the back end of his career and cardio waning. But don't be surprised because we've seen a lot of, like I said, fighters losing their debut and then looking good. The second fight end up losing because everyone thinks they're gonna win because they look good. But yeah, I think Jose does win this fight, and I think he might finish Cody Durden, but that remains to be seen. Shit. Sorry. Moving on, we got Malcolm Wellmaker versus Chris Martino. Very interesting fight. Malcolm Wellmaker, very hyped prospect right now. 9-0. Coming off that knockout win over Cameron Simon, where he looked damn good, damn sharp. Yeah, and he's taking on the returning Chris Martino, who had a 2-fight UFC skid back in, what was it, 2021. Debuted against Sean O'Malley, got pieced up badly and got finished in the third round. But then he came into that second fight against, what's his face? Guido Canetti, and got knocked out. And this Chris is being labeled as a guy who's really durable and everything. And after he got cut, he went back to the regional scene. And he's gotten 5 finishes in a row, so he's 5-0 right now. So it's pretty damn good for him. But against a guy like Malcolm Wellmaker, I think it's kind of similar to his Sean O'Malley matchup. I think he's kind of just being brought back in to be a sacrificial lamb. I think it might be a bit worse than the Sean O'Malley fight because I think Malcolm might actually finish him a lot sooner than Sean did. But one thing to know about this fight, I think Malcolm right now sits as the biggest favorite in UFC history. Last time I checked, he was a minus 2,500 favorite, which, if anyone watches this sport, everybody knows no way in hell should any person ever be ranked or put as a minus 2,000 favorite, let alone a minus 1,000 favorite, because this is the fight game. Anything can happen. So, yeah, let me look at the odds. Yeah, minus 2,100 right now, so it's gone down a bit, but still way too high. But that being said, I think Malcolm Wellmaker finishes this guy in the first round. Yeah, sucks for Martino, be brought back to be knocked out possibly, but hey, maybe they'll give him another shot and he'll do something good. But he doesn't seem like UFC level. And I met the guy at a grappling tournament years ago. But yeah, I think he gets knocked out, but hopefully he does good. Next fight on the card, we got 2 old vets. We got Mike Chiesa versus Court McGee, 2 former tough winners. Mike Chiesa 18-7, Court McGee 22-13. both at an interesting point in their career, both 2-3 in their last 5. Chiesa coming off those 2 wins to the withered corpse of Tony Ferguson, and then not Mike Davis. Freaking cat! My God, just start kicking the wall. Sorry. I don't know his name. He. Why is it? Max Griffin. Sorry. Beat Tony Ferguson and Max Griffin both by rear naked choke. Other than that, I think his life has been too focused on the analyst side, which you can't blame him. He needs the life after the UFC because UFC won't last forever. Props to him for doing something. But he's taking on Court McGee, who also old vet. Hasn't been looking too good in his last couple fights. He is coming off of that win over Tim Means. Tim Means, another old vet. So it wasn't too impressive. And before that, lost 3 fights in a row. So, yeah, I think in terms of who's going to win, I think Mike Chiesa wins. I think his striking is a bit more polished than Quartz. Quartz more of the wrestler, but Mike's ground game isn't to be trifled with. He's nasty. He's got nasty dart choke, nasty submissions. But I think if you were to lean anybody, I'm going to lean Mike Chiesa, just because of his overall technique and skill at this point of his career. But other than that, I really don't care who wins this fight because I think both of them retire by the end of the year for sure. So, yeah. And moving on, we've got our featured bout of the night. We have Paul Craig versus Rodolfo Bellato. Paul Craig 17-9-1. Rodolfo Bellato 12-2-1. Both standing at 6'3". And this is an interesting fight. Paul Craig, everyone knows, kind of the coin flip of those higher weight divisions where if he can win at any given moment on the ground, as long as he can sink in a submission, he can win. But if he can't sink in a submission, he's going to lose that fight, which you can see by his last 5. He's 1-4, and that one win was over Andre Muniz, and that was a while ago. So he hasn't been doing too good. He's still dangerous as ever on the ground. Moving back up to light heavyweight from middleweight, didn't have any success other than the Andre Muniz fight at middleweight. But yeah, he's taking on known herpes haver Rodolfo Bellato. This is a rescheduling of their last fight because Rodolfo Bellato had to pull out for medical reasons no one knew at the time. And then he himself came out and stated he had to pull out due to an outbreak of herpes. So, yeah, that is very. Well, I don't know why he would say that, make that known to the public because he's never going to live that down, and everyone's going to remember him as that for the rest of his life, probably. But honestly, I think Rodolfo does win this fight, but I am not sold at all on Rodolfo. He has not shown anything of UFC caliber. He does have a ground and pound victory over Ihor Peteria, who also I don't rank really high, who's also been cut. He had that draw against Jimmy Crute, and the one thing about that fight that plays in my head again and again is him, trying to attempt a takedown but pulling Jimmy on top of him. So, yeah, it's not really looking good for Rodolfo. He should win the fight because he's younger and hungrier and all that, and he has more KO power than Paul Craig. But if he pulls that same shit and gets to the ground as Paul Craig, I think Paul Craig submits him easy. And yeah, I'm gonna be putting a small bet on Paul Craig by sub because I always do. It always pays out nice if it wins, but don't bet on him money line because Paul Craig cannot be relied on at this point in his career. So yeah. Moving on to the main card, we have Alonzo Menifield versus Omar Sy. Omar Sy, 11-0. a hot prospect in the light heavyweight division, taking on Alonzo Menifield. Menifield really not taking it too serious as of late. I mean, that's how it appears to me. Um, has but almost size at 2 fights in the UFC. Not submitted Tokos in the first round, but then Da Woong Jung took the decision, got hurt in that fight, but showed that he's able to, power through it, grit his teeth and just get a decision win, go all for 3 rounds, which I like to see from these undefeated prospects because a lot of them just have finishes again and again, and you don't really know how they are once they go to a decision, go all 3 rounds. But I really like seeing those decision. Alonzo Menifield coming off that split decision win over Julius Walker. Before that, 2 KOs in a row. Um, I think Alonzo on the back end of his career, he's trained with Pat Barry before. How old was she, Pat? How old was she, Pat? As everyone knows what Sean Strickland asked Rose Namajunas, lost her the title. Yeah, screw Pat Barry. I'm leaning 100% Omar Sy. I have never had any faith in Alonzo Menifield. He has had some success, but anyone who trains with Pat Barry, I don't think is good. Rose is the exception, but we'll get to Rose later. Okay, but I have Omar Sy in this fight. I think he wins by finish within the first 2 rounds, and he'll move to 12-0. Moving on, we got Cody Brundage versus Mansour Abdul Malik. Right before I say anything, I'm just going to say thank you, Cody Brundage, for beating Julian Marquez and getting him cut from the UFC. That was the greatest thing ever. You won me money. Thank you. But you got a hard fight in Mansour Abdul Malik. I think in this fight, it's going to come down to 2 things. I think Mansour ends up winning the fight. He's 8-0. He's dangerous. If he gets Cody to the ground and starts wailing on his head, he is going to beat that head and finish Cody. But Cody is a tough guy. He is durable. He's willing to fight. He has shown a bit of quit in him in the past, but the Julian Marquez, he really gritted his teeth and pulled through and got the win. But getting hurt bad and almost finished by Julian Marquez does not look well for me. I love Cody. I always root for him. But in this fight, I think Mansour is just the overall better fighter. I think he's the more dangerous fighter, the more hungrier fighter, and once he gets Cody onto the ground and gets him into a ground and pound position, I think it's gonna be over. And I think Mansour Abdulik beats Cody Brundage by finish. Yeah. Moving on, we got Cody Garbrandt versus Ronnie Barcelos. Interesting fight. Cody's the former champ. Something I'd like to say always is he kind of sold his chin for the belt because he had an amazing performance against Dom Cruz, one of the best performances in a title fight ever. But after that, he had 3 straight losses, lost to TJ twice, and then Pedro Munoz, and then knocked out Rafael Alonso in the last second of their fight, and then lost 2 more fights to Rob Font, and then Kai Kara won 2 more fights, and then had a loss. So interesting point of his career, and he's young too, but he's that fight age where you've been through a lot of wars and you've been touched up a lot that your body is older than what your actual age is. But he's taking on Ronnie Barcelos, who's not a young guy in himself. He's coming off that big upset win over Peyton Talbot, where he just controlled him on the ground and showed Peyton's very lacking in his ground game and still has a lot to learn. But before that, I submitted Kristen Quinones, which is an alright fight, but excuse me. Ronnie is a durable fighter. I think a lot of people betting Cody by knockout because Cody is the dog, I think. But I don't know. Looking at this fight, I think Cody will have some success. I think his striking, as you've seen in his fights, his striking, he is still there. He still has that striking speed and technique. It's still there. He just, something about it, he just can't put everything together anymore. But I think he's going to be able to keep his distance in this fight, and I think he's going to be able to piece up Ronnie on the feet. Because if you remember, Cody started his career as a wrestler, so I don't think Ronnie was going to be able to take him down as at will. So I think Cody is going to be able to stay on his feet, defend any takedowns that are thrown at him, and just piece up Parcells for all 3 rounds to win a decision. I think it looks similar to his Trevin Jones fight at 285, where it was a bit boring, but he got the job done, and I think that's what he does here. But moving on, we've got Edmund Shabazian versus Andre Petrovsky. Now, before I preface this, I'm going to say one thing. Take a look. Take a look over here at Andre Petrovsky, right? Look at his stomach. He's got a little hammer and sickle tattoo. And it may not mean anything to anyone, or it may not mean too much to him, but I see that, and all that screams in my mind, communism. That might be a bit racist, but ever since I saw that tattoo, no, ever since I saw him on The Ultimate Fighter, I have not liked him. He was a first-round pick for T-City's team, Brian Ortega, and he has not shown anything since then. He is a boring fighter. He will just hold you on the ground for 3 rounds to get a win. Doesn't mind being boring. He just wants to win no matter what. But this is a guy who we've also seen shoot a takedown into Jacob Malkoon's hip and knock himself out. So I've never liked this guy. I've never rooted for him, and I'm always going to root against him. But he's taking on Edmund Shabazian, who has been a hot and cold fighter in his career. He was Ronda's coach, whatever his name was, Golden Boy for a time. He was a big hot prospect in the middleweight division, supposed to be that next champion. But ran into Derek Brunson, I'm pretty sure, and at that time, Derek Brunson, aka Blonde Brunson, was that guy and was just beating prospects. And ever since that, he's been hot and cold. He hasn't looked good at all. Lost a lot of fights. He's won 2 fights, both by finish, TKO. No, 3 fights. What am I talking about? That's my bad. 3 fights by TKO. All against fighters who aren't the best, and his losses are against fighters who actually have some notable names to them. But lost to Anthony Hernandez, lost to Gerald Marshall, Jack Manson, Nasruddin Imavov. He's lost to some of the best. One against not the best, but coming down to this fight, I think Eidman's striking is going to be about 10 times better than Andre's. I can't believe I'm going to say I'm going to be actively rooting for Edmund. I might even put a bet on Edmund because I do not like Andre Petrovsky, and I'm always going to be rooting for him to lose and be cut by the UFC because fuck him, fuck that communism tattoo, and I hope he gets knocked out. Moving on, we have the co-main event of the evening. We have Rose Namajunas versus Miranda Maverick. Interesting fight. I keep saying interesting fight, but Rose 13-7, also working with Pat Barry. Has had her big moments in the UFC, winning the title, but also had her bad moments in the UFC. She started her career at 115, as we all know, was the 115-pound champ, 2-time champ. Second time around, head kicked John Wei Lee, and then beat her by decision. And then, as we all know, had that utterly, disastrously more boring than Izzy versus Romero fight, Carlos Alvarez versus Rose Namajunas. Terrible fight. They gave Carlo the title. Oh well. And since then, she moved up to 125, and it was an interesting move for her because she wasn't always the biggest 115 pounder, and moving up to 125, she wasn't even the biggest there. She lost to Amanda Fiora and then Aaron Blanchfield, but beat Ribas and Tracy Cortez. And the Tracy Cortez fight, she looked pretty damn good. And I think her one knock for that I give her at flyweight is that she's just a bit too small. But coming into this fight against Miranda Maverick, I saw at the face-offs that she's actually a bit bigger than Miranda Maverick. And Miranda Maverick was someone that me and Jake originally, like years ago, back in like 2020, when she, I think was first coming on to the UFC scene. We were like, oh, I think this girl's gonna do something. I think she's gonna be something. And then when she just fought the high level fighters, she just couldn't put things together and ended up losing. But she's put together a nice 4-fight win streak against some decent opponents. But I think she's surprisingly a bit smaller than Rose Namajunas. She is more of a wrestler, but I think Rose is just gonna be able to pick her apart on the feet, and I just don't think Miranda Maverick is gonna be able. I think she might do good. Oh wait, no, this is 3 rounds, not 5 rounds, so that kind of changes things. Because if Miranda can get a hold of her and just hold her against a cage for 3 rounds, she will do that, I think. So I'm thinking, how old is Miranda Maverick actually? Let me check real quick before I do anything. She's only 27. So oddly enough, I'm going to actually lean Miranda Maverick. I think she's actually, now that I think about it, I think she might be able to utilize her wrestling a lot better than Rose will. Rose is definitely going to try and pick it apart on the feet, but I look back at the Aaron Blanchfield loss for Rose, and I kind of see something similar happening here. Definitely not as good because we all know Maverick isn't as good as Blanchfield. But I think if Maverick's able to get a hold of her and just hold her, I think she's going to do it. So I'm gonna actually lean Miranda Maverick. I could eat my words on this one, but it is what it is. It's a fight. We choose who we choose, and may the best person win. But moving on, we've got the main event of the evening: the returning former champion Kamaru Usman taking on up-and-comer Joaquin Buckley. Very interesting fight. Very good fight. Usman, former champion, former pound for pound #1 fighter, coming off a year and a half layoff. He has that last loss to Hamzat Chimaev, where he arguably could have won that fight. If that fight was 5 rounds, everyone knows he wins that fight. But lost that fight, and before that had the 2 losses to Leon. Um, the first loss against Leon, he was winning the entire fight until he got caught by a head kick. Then the second fight, it was a close decision, but I think Leon did win that fight. A lot of people think Usman may have had success, but I think Leon won the fight. But after that Hamzat loss, he took a year and a half off, probably to recover, rest. We all know the meme. He has some of the worst knees in the business. So he definitely took some time to recover. He was one of the 3 most active champs at the time, so he deserved a break and to recover, so he took it. But he's taking on Joaquin Buckley, who in Usman's time off has put together a valuable resume at 170 for himself. He started his career at 185, and he did not have success at 185. He debuted and lost by knockout to Kevin Holland, and he had some wins, but he had some losses too. And then he decided, fuck it, let's move down to 170. And since moving down to 170, he has been 6-0. And he beat Andre Fiallo, Alex Morono, fuck Alex Morono, Vicente Luque, Sultan Ruziboyev, knocked out Wonderboy, and then basically knocked out Colby Covington. Stopped the fight by Dr. Stoppage, but dude, he's been on a tear, and especially going down to welterweight, was one of the greatest decisions he ever made. And honestly, in my opinion, I think he's become somewhat of a dark horse in this division. He's got he doesn't have the same type of style, but the way he throws his power shots, like the way he threw it against Wonderboy and knocked him out, it's very Mike Tyson esque. So I think that power is very underrated, and I think if he connects flush with anyone, he knocks him out cold. And like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when he was calling out Jack, I was like, Jack murks this boy. He runs through Joaquin, but now I'm at the point where I'm worried about that because Joaquin, he is underrated as all hell, and I think he is an actual future title challenger. I think he can actually challenge for that title, and I'd be interested because we need more people like Buckley in the game. Someone who's brash, true to themselves, willing to say what they want to say, and is funny about it. And we need people like that. And as everybody probably predicts, I think he does knock out Usman in this fight, but with the time off and the rest, maybe it'll help Usman look better in there, but it will, produce some ring rust for him as well because a year and a half off, you can't just jump back in there and look flush and fluid. It just can't happen, and it's a very interesting fight for Usman to try and come back and win. And if he's 38. He's on the back end of his career. It could be his last fight, especially if he loses by knockout. But this is Kamaru Usman, one of the most mentally tough fighters we've ever seen in the game. If he wants to win, he will find a way to win, 100%. But I just think at this stage of his career and with the tear that Buckley's on, I think Buckley is gonna, within the first 3 rounds, TKO Kamaru Usman and then stamp himself as, you know, one of these top guys. I mean, there's a lot of top guys at the 170 division, but he'll be one of the main ones. So yeah, I think Buckley takes this by TKO, and oddly enough, both of these guys' last wins are both Colby Covington. Joaquin, as we all know, beat him in December, and Kamaru Usman's last win, which was 2021. Just saying just saying that fucking shocks me. Like Usman, one of the former best fighters in the world, last victory was 2021, 4 years ago, almost 4 years ago. So yeah, it's weird to think that, but I think Buckley wins by knockout, and I think it's gonna be a great card. So definitely tune in, watch the card. I'll be watching the card, and I'll be posting my recap video either Sunday or Monday of next week. So stay tuned for that. Also stay tuned for the future quick picks breakdowns that I'm going to be doing. June 21st next week we have the UFC Baku card, Jamal Hill versus Khalil Roundtree Jr. Week after that we have International Fight Week, UFC 317 headlined by Charles Oliveira and Ilya Topuria. And the co-main is Pantoja versus Kai France. Then you got Lewis versus Teixeira, July 12th, July 19th, 318, and then July 26th, the Fight Night in Abu Dhabi between Whitaker and DeRitter. But yep, that's gonna do it for this video. Thank you guys for watching. Drop a like, leave a comment, make sure to subscribe, and thank you all for watching. And I'll catch you all in the next video. And remember, all the greatest fighters always leave it all in the final round. Peace.